begin Perek Yud Ches of Nefesh Hachaim. And what we learned until now, which is can't do Perek Yud Ches unless you understand all the first 17 Rakim. And the key side is that from here in our world, in our bodies, in our nefesh, we have to be tied up to the ruach, and then the ruach to the neshama, and the neshama to the chaya, then to the yechida, until the Kadosh Baruch Hu himself. So there's a tie-up. Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim. Hashem blew into our nostrils. This is the way it went. It went from, we know the technology of it, went from Hashem vayipach ba'apav, not straight, but it went through a process. It's a process. Different stages of development through the neshama, through the ruach, and through the nefesh. So we're here in the nefesh, and therefore we learned in Perek Yud Zayin that if somebody does an avera and you want to do tshuva, so what you're really thinking about in terms of tshuva is not so much bettering yourself. Of course you're bettering yourself, but it's not like a self-help type of a thing or a self-improvement type of a thing. Tshuva is actually the realignment of the nefesh to the ruach to the neshama. That's actually a realignment, so stuff flows again. So an avera pushes things off alignment, and tshuva pushes things back on alignment, and that's what he's going to continue on here. Perek Yud Ches. B'chol zeh miroiv tuvay v'chastay hagadol yisbarach shvay. This is all by the goodness of Hashem. Asher chafetz la'atztikenu lahetevach b'seinu l'zais hifli eitza. Hashem wanted for us to be very, very connected. La'atztikenu lahetevach b'seinu, so that our achris, so that the end, I presume he means olav haba, should work out well for us. L'zos hifli eitza, and Hashem has this great eitza. So because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to be connected to us, or more important perhaps, he wants us to be connected to him, so he created this pipeline. And every bechina, meaning bechina means nefesh, ruach, neshama, everything is connected to the bechina which is above it. Kadei shal deiseh, yuchal adam lalois liskasher mimato lamalo ma'at ma'at. And here he tells us a very interesting thing, that this connection that we keep talking about, we talked about it a lot, this connection of me being, what I want to do here in the few minutes that we have is understand what this actually means, not just mathematics and a diagram of how it works. That's important, but what does it actually mean? But one of the things that he says here is that the purpose of this pipeline of getting our nefesh to hook up with our ruach to the neshama, is to connect HaKadosh Baruch Hu, liskasher mimato lamalo, to be able to connect from down to up, ma'at ma'at. So there's an interesting point here, that this is a process. It's a ma'at ma'at. Like one might think, either you're connected or you're not connected. But apparently it's not so simple. Apparently ma'at ma'at, I don't mean just to talk about what the Balei Musar like to say, you have to go slowly. If you don't go slowly, you can fall. That's not what he's saying over here. That the actual process is what life is all about. Life is about making this connection. So it's not something like, okay, did it. I learned some Nefesh Hachaim. I'm connected now. I've decided to connect. It's a ma'at ma'at. This is a long process. It's a step-by-step process of being connected. So it comes out very interesting. Tshuva is also a slow process. There are many Gemaras where it talks about that Yachal Adam Liknois Elamai B'Shah Achas. Where it tells stories about Elazar ben Durdaya and Katia bar Shalom and different characters in history that they did tshuva koines olamai. What does that mean, koines olamai? They did tshuva 1 second. They made a quick connection, and with that connection, they were tied up to la'olamai, to his sherish neshama. That's what the Gemara means. Yachal adam liknais olamai b'shah achas, v'yesh adam shekoin olamai b'har b'shanim. So some people could do it quickly, and some people could do it over the course of a life. So the Gemara says, Just as an example, the Gemara says that whenever one of these stories would come up about somebody who did tshuva the last minute before they died, so it says Rebbe Hayabocha. Rebbe used to cry when he used to hear these stories. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, I think he was a big crier. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi used to cry when he used to hear these stories. Pashut Pshat is you learn that he cried. It's like a very deep, it's an emotional thing. Like look how a person connected back to his source and on the last minute. The Maharsha tells us that Rabbi Hayabocha, he was crying al hachaval, because the chaval is that if somebody's already going to connect up to his shirish, chaval that he didn't spend his whole life doing this, and it would have been a solid connection and a good connection and a real connection. So that was Rabbi Hayabocha. If somebody's disconnected, so nothing to cry about. But if a person's already connecting, why not connect ma'at ma'at? So the point I'm making is, the chiddush here is that we're talking about tshuva. So tshuva, we think of tshuva. Did you make tshuva? Like did you think of tshuva as something you do? Did an avera do tshuva? Tshuva is not as easy to do as the avera. Tshuva is a process, and it's a process. And you see, the Rambam is, parak after parak after parak, the process of getting realigned. It's like if God forbid somebody has like some kind of an accident, so that takes a minute. If you want to do physical therapy and get yourself back into shape, that takes 5 years. It's getting back aligned, literally getting back aligned spiritually is a big process. And if you don't do it ma'at, you didn't do it in a way. You can connect, but that's the chiddush here. If you write iskay b'Torah v'avoda yisparach shva, it takes a lot of davening, takes a lot of learning. V'taras libay v'avasa yisparach yer shamayim avas Hashem. Those are all tools to reconnect. But you're not yet. A person has avas Hashem, you're not reconnected. It's a tool to reconnect. Until you get back to the source of life, and that's how you get back up to your shirish. So something that we've said a lot, but we didn't say completely. We've said this a lot in the previous prakim, that this alignment is a form of tshuva, and it's a life work. It's a life work. It's not a thing you do. It's a life work. See, I always wonder about this, just agav, that in the olden days, when I say the olden days, I mean like the time of the Chassam Sefer, the time of Rabbi Kiveger, the time of the Noda B'Yehuda. So you have a lot of tshuvas. If you read the responsa literature, there's a lot of tshuvas about people that were nichshol in a certain avera, and they came to the Rav, talk about, Litvish Rabbanim, Polish Rabbanim, the Hungarian Rabbanim. They came and they said, how do I make tshuva for this, right? I couldn't hold myself back. I made an espresso Shabbos morning. Right? So I don't know where my head was. I just did it. I couldn't hold myself back. I had a cigarette on Shabbos. I couldn't hold myself back. I had relations with my wife, who was a nita. So in the tshuvas, they give very, very specific programs as to how to do tshuva. I don't know if you've ever seen this literature. Like there's a lot of, you must give a lot of tzedakah. You have to roll in the snow. You have to, be parish from your isha for a year. And there are all kinds of things of how to do tshuva, which is fascinating to me because, what are they explaining? What they're explaining is how it's like going to a therapist of some sort, or let's say even a physical therapist, or even like a chiropractor, to see how do you get realigned. How do you you broke off a connection. How do you get realigned? I noticed that this is not the minhag anymore. Although people come and ask, how do I do tshuva for this? I heard once, or maybe I saw a sefer, I heard once that we don't do this anymore. We don't do it anymore. I'm not sure why we don't do it anymore, but maybe, I don't know. But
no, the Yehuda writes. I saw one tshuva. He says we don't do it, but in a specific case he gave some answers anyway.
Right, there's a tshuva about somebody who had
with his mother,
an affair or something. Yeah. But we don't do it. I don't know. It's always.
Within Chassidus, Rabbi, within Chassidus, they have more directive, specific.
I don't know.
They say, what do you mean within like our?
I don't think they have what they. I don't think there's all svarim tshuvas about different shuvas that you have to do. It's hard to. I mean, I can tell you some reason I don't do it anymore because let's say somebody would ask me, I'm a rabbi, somebody would ask me, how do I do tshuva for this fact? I don't really know. The real answer is, I could tell you, go through the Rambam and say vidui and Kabbalah al-Os and Charat al-Avar. I don't really know like the specifics. I mean, you really need to know. So maybe just nobody knows. Maybe nobody's. I don't know. But the thing of it is that what they were doing, whether we do it or not, is a sociological question, I guess. But what they were doing was creating a process of putting the person back on track. That's what was going on. Back on track.
That completely changes the whole paradigm of Tshuva, Tefillah, and Tzedakah. It's not so much a thing anymore when you look at it from a Rosh Hashanah point of view. Tefillah maybe is simpler, Tzedakah you can understand, but now Tshuva is like the whole paradigm.
Yeah, Tshuva is a different story.
Yeah.
And you see, Tefillah and Tzedakah are different tools to use, different things that you take out to connect. But Teshuva, like it's right. So Teshuva is ma'at. It's not a. So you can do it in a minute. Apparently, you can create some kind. You can force some kind of a. Maybe this is a difference. Like I don't know what I'm talking about, but maybe there's a difference between like physical therapist and a chiropractor. Like it takes a physical therapist, 6 weeks to do what a chiropractor could do in a minute. So just to put everything back, realign. But
none of them are in the room to be Michael.
Just
none of them are in the room to be Michael.
Physical therapist or chiropractor. So I can say whatever I want, but I'm thinking one is probably more like training the body of how to. One's more whether I'm right or not, I don't know. But I know chiropractors help me, but I don't know. Like it's kind of like invasive. But anyways, that's one you say that the paradigm, as you say, of tshuva is a realignment, which is a process. That's the first thing. Then the question is, what's the process? Let's go a little further. Because we've only so far scratched the surface. Furthermore, I feel good because on Thursday I gave a whole share about Yedid Hashem and Yedid Nefesh, and that was like very positive. So now we're talking about Kares. But it's also positive if you think about it. There are avonos shanefesh hachotes ba'achas ein nischayv kares. Person sometimes, God forbid, does an avera and he's chayv kares. Ba'alei shazish, right? It's chayv kares. Oy avadoin chas v'shalom, or he gets lost. These are two different things. Kares, by avadoin. There's a difference. What is kares? Inina karesu, and I've explained this outside, but here we have it inside. Shebechinas hanefesh kares. Kares means cut off. That's what kares means, cut off. The cut off punishment. So what's getting cut from what? What's the kares? So b'chinas hanefesh nifsak v'nichras misharsha elyon. The pshat is that everything's all lined up. My nefesh, my ruach, my neshama, all beautiful. And kares is so you can imagine like a source of oxygen. Here's the pipe. Everything's working perfectly except that it's boom, it's off to the side. So when a person does an avera that's chayv kares, you've unplugged, you've detached the source of life from the nefesh, which is the life as we know it. So that's what kares is. Kares is like you're moving the pipe, or you're cutting the pipe. Even worse, you're cutting the pipe. So if you cut the pipe, so obviously you're not getting the oxygen. So how do you continue living in such a case? So the answer is because there's another source, like emergency supply of life, called sitrachra and tuma. Those things also give life. They also give life, but it's very unhealthy life, and it's tummy. The life from the sitrachra makes one tummy. But a person who's spiritually sensitive can understand that you could be like Rishayim b'chayayim nikroyim mesim. You can be alive, but you feel like you're dead. A person, like The Walking Dead. Like, you could be alive, but you're not hooked up to this source of life, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And you're in a different place. See, he's talking about curse, which is pretty extreme. But let me give a very simple example, just because we're not chayiv curse, but it's not even chayiv curse. It's just like something you do. It's almost like a self-inflicted. It's like the bungee jumper. Like, I'm going to be macho. I don't need a rope. Just cuts it off. Like it's and now you're on your own. The nefesh is on its own. So what happens to that nefesh? But I just think about what I think is a very practical example of this, which is nogay everybody. Like we all know, for instance, that we have to do chesed. Everybody knows you're supposed to do chesed. It means I'm supposed to give of myself to other people. We also all know that everybody's different. So if you can only give chesed to somebody who's just like you, that's not chesed. Chesed is to give somebody who's a little bit. We're all different. We're all a little bit different. So when you look around you, you look at the people that you're surrounded with. To my mind, and they need something. So you got to wonder what your reaction is. If your reaction is they need something, I want to try to help them. So that's chesed. Everything's hooked up. But what if there's a nituk between what I know in my brain that I'm supposed to do chesed, and that comes from even a higher source of the ruach and the neshama, and this person who's in need? Whether it's a person davening next to you and children knocking on the door, whatever it might be. When there's a nituk, what happens is instead of chesed, what happens is now all of a sudden the guy gets on my nerves because he's different than me. He makes me nervous. He makes me angry. So all of a sudden a person finds himself nervous and bekas. So that means that, in my understanding, that means that you're not hooked up to the source of life itself. You might know something, so you have a idea, big deal, you know something. I've met people that can darshan about health and talk about all kinds of healthy things. This is healthy, this is unhealthy, and they're mamish like so unhealthy. Their whole lifestyle is so unhealthy. They somehow or another they become like a bucky, and why? Because they've been hearing these drushes since they're a little kid. Don't eat this, exercise. Don't do any of it. So they have it in their minds, but it doesn't somehow permeate their body. So like if you have chesed in your mind, even in your heart. But when it comes to doing it, it's getting on my nerves. It's making me angry. It's the fact that you're different than me. Why are you acting like that? Why are you walking like that? Why? So that means there's a nituk. There's a nituk, and that nituk needs bedika. My Rebbe Zatzal used to always say that, if a person finds himself talking Lashon Hara a lot, it's not about learn the halachas of Lashon Hara. Yes, of course you have to know what's Lashon Hara, what's not Lashon Hara. But there's something wrong with a person who's talking Lashon Hara all the time. There's something wrong. There's something either spiritually wrong or psychologically wrong with a person who's always talking Lashon Hara. It's not normal. It's not normal to have to constantly denigrate another person. There's some kind of an insecurity in themselves, some type of, let's call it a nituk, a short, right? A short. Something is not getting all the way into my yadayim, into my peh, into my maisa.
I think in the second Shaar of Shiur Salashim, the Kehillat Shivtei, in a certain paragraph, it cites 7 different psychological causes that make a person speak Lashon Hara.
Yes.
I remember one of those guys. There's even like a notary for I don't remember what it is, but.
Yeah, I saw it.
You get to control these 7 things. You're.
It doesn't. Then it's not about stopping it here. It's not stopping it as it's coming out of here. Right. It's not. It's figuring out. So I think that what I'm saying is I think that the relevance of what we're learning here is not so much about kares. It's about looking for the shorts. Looking for the shorts. Like what is causing me to do this? What is causing me? And it's particularly easy to see, I believe, easier to see in the Bein Adam L'Chaveros. I think it's those are good markers for whether I'm hooked up to my neshama or not. And I'm starting with a simple premise that we all know what's right. It's not like we don't know what's right. We all know what's right. We all know we're supposed to be nice to people and do chesed and forgive another person. But sometimes people have such a hard time giving. You ever notice it, like such a difficult time giving a compliment to another person? Like, Mazah, why is this so difficult? Like we're worried they're going to become a Balgai that's going to go to their head. And all of a sudden we're the elder of Slobodkin. Yeah, worry. Oh, you're going to become a Balgai, but why don't we worry about everything else with them? We worry about the Balgai. But it's something psychologically wrong. So I'm saying that these shorts, Lani Estaiti, are a simon of the nituk. But that's point one, simple point. Yeah.
What I'm hearing the Rav described is can maybe be attributed to the nituk between mind and heart.
Uh-huh.
So where does the Kodesh Baruch fit into that?
It's the thing is like this, that you got to be deeper. It's all one line. So it goes from your yodayim to your heart to your mind to the ruach to the neshama. So the nituk can be here, maybe easier to deal with. Go see a psychologist. The nituk is here. Talk to kids. I'm not a psychologist. But talk to kids a lot. Just recently talking, not for the first time, but just recently talking to a kid who's got this problem that they're cutting themselves a lot, which is a very, for people our age, it's so bizarre and unusual, and I hate taking a blood test. What do you do? He goes, voluntarily. You just like it doesn't, and the kids all say, no. It's they get this like glow on their face. Like it's almost like. No, like you feel. So it's hard. It's hard. Honestly, it's hard for me to relate to it. But I can understand that. In other words, you can get to a point where you get so cut off, where you feel, like dead, unless you're feeling something.
That's what talks about. Yes, Akasha, how a ger could be makabel mitzvahs, a goy. She says basically, it's like Gita b'yada ma'amka'achas, but the yesod seems to be that capacity to self-transcend is only by a yid. So maybe the nituk, when you can't do the chesed, the nituk is that you can't transcend your animal nature.
Right. Or yeah.
And you need that.
By the way, like
shefa,
I'm not a big Musser guy. I'm just not doesn't talk to me. But this is where the Musser works. I feel like the Musser works when you're getting from Nefesh to Ruach. I think that Nefesh Hachaim. The next level is trying to deal with things where it depends where the disconnect is. You need to locate the disconnect to know how to repair it, and sometimes it requires something very, very special. But I think what I'm saying is that we're so, when you talk about the tshuva, who the nature of tshuva has changed. Like tshuva is out of style in that sense. It's even more, od v'yoser, like if people come to, Talmud Chacham and they say, I did this and this aveira, what should I do? Get past it. Just don't dwell on it. It's just so that's what you hear a lot. Reb Nachman, Hadarabba. But it's interesting. Times have changed. I'm not judging. Times have changed, but what hasn't changed is the pipeline that's going up. Let me just say another yesod, and then I think it'll make it easier to learn further. Two yesodos that I want to say that because it gets very complicated and kabbalistic. So I just want to say simple things. Number one is all about the kasher. Number two. Kares is an extreme example, and there are many kinds of kares. Kares, an example of like literally cutting the cord. That's whether it's the oxygen cord or the bungee cord or whatever cord it is that's keeping me alive. Kares means you're cutting the cord. But the Nefesh Hachaim, I think in Parakhov, to program away, he explains very clearly that that's like kares, but every aveira is a little bit of kares. Important is every time somebody does an aveira, there's some part of detachment which is there. So and therefore it's harder to connect.
Like smoking a cigarette. 2 capillaries just got hit.
You don't feel a thing.
You don't feel anything. Tomorrow, another 8. The next one, 8. The next, So, yeah.
Yeah. I think just you talk about smoking cigarettes. I don't want to talk about smoking cigarettes, but I'm thinking like last couple of years, I'm a learner, so the last couple of years, so I started to learn more about health. I'm just saying this only as a muscle. And I'm not particularly into all kinds of natural healing things, mostly because the practitioners very often don't know what they're talking about. They're just, that's not because I'm against it, they're just, because it's right, if you know how to do it, do it. But what I have become a big, just as a muscle, again, I'm not going to talk about health here, I'm just giving you a muscle. What I have become a big chassid of is functional medicine. So functional medicine, in other words, you go to a doctor and you have a headache, so they'll give you a Tylenol, and the Tylenol take away your headache. And a functional medical practitioner will ask, well, I wonder why you're getting these headaches. Just a very simple question, which not all doctors are trained to do. So this is called functional medicine. Well, maybe let's look at your thyroid. Let's look at your pancreas. Let's look at what's going on. And it's so fascinating, and makes so much more sense to anybody who's used to learning Torah to try to figure out, again, not to be confused with just natural, natural is there. What's the point? Natural. The thing is instead of treating the symptom, to try to get to the cause of it. And everything has a cause. What?
Holistic approach.
It's holistic, but it's functional in the sense that really a big bucky in biology or in food science and be able to understand, or even climate environment, to be able to understand how everything affects your body and why this and this is happening. By the way, it's a much more difficult way of getting rid of your headache. and very often the answer is, well, take a Tylenol in the meantime until you figure this out, because this could take ma'at. This could take many, many years till you really get to the point of connection. But the thing is that what you really want to do is I would think logic says what you really want to do is be healthy, not figure out how to get rid of the symptom. Probably everybody agrees with that. That's really the right way to do it, if you can do it, or if you're not too old, or whatever. Sometimes you just can't get it back, so you deal with the symptoms. So you have arthritis, and this hurts, and that hurts, and blah blah blah. So you can do things to take away the pain. But even surgery is taking away the pain, but it's not necessarily getting to the source of the thing. And it's the same thing in the world of Ruchnius. You got to be careful, because you can, sometimes with just Musar, you'll fix certain behaviors, but is it real? Is it real? And if so, who cares? Maybe, I don't know. But if it's not real, is
It's not lasting. It's not lasting then.
It's not lasting, and it's not even I remember somebody who used to always be very, the Mishnah says you should be makabelos kol adam sever panim yafos, right? You should greet everybody with happiness, with a smile, sever panim yafos, And I knew somebody that was really not good at that. It just wasn't, you better be big. What did I do to you? What did I do wrong? He told me that he was omen on this, or somebody mentioned it to him, and he's always looking angry. So he's worked on this thing, and he greeted everybody with this huge smile, shalom, nice, beautiful, sever panim yafos, right? Musar, you can do. But I noticed, because I just happen to be super sensitive, that big smile, and then turns around. It's gone, So if the guy, if you're watching him for that extra 3 seconds, you're in trouble. Is it fake? I guess. Is it good? It's probably good. Better than no smile at all.
Fake it till you become it. Fake it till you become it.
Yeah. So but become it. That's the point I'm making. I once told my Rebbe that I'm having a hard time learning all day, all night. 14 hours a day. It's very hard for me at sometimes. He said, "Fake it." Okay. I hear that. But you gotta. I think it's fake it till you become it. It's got to go at least another 3-4 seconds. The smile. It's you know what I'm saying. It's not fun. It's not functional. It's not real. It's not coming from the inside. So the one point I wanted to bring out here, this will be our introduction to the next couple of Shiurim, is that every Avera is kares. The Nefesh Hachaim said every Avera has some aspect of disconnection to it. It's not somebody's chas v'shalom ba'al ha'erva Chayv Kares, that's like a big one. That's a huge disconnection. It's like getting hit by a car, you know. But every Avera, every time you smoke a cigarette, as you say, there's a kares involved, but it's gradual and you don't feel it, and it's not right. That's number one. The second thing we need to understand is, which he's going to say in the next paragraph, but I want to speak it out, is that the way to look at this pipe is not as a pipe at all. The way to look at this is there's different levels of connectivity. And this very much relates to what we're saying, or your muscle of the smoking or the capillaries. That like if you, I've explained this many times, that Klal Yisrael and Mitzrayim went down to the 49th level, Memtesh Shari Tumah, 49th level of Tumah. There's only 50, so it's pretty bad. And on this we say, in the Haggadah, that Baruch HaMakoim, thank God, Kadosh Baruch Hu Chishev es HaKetz. Kadosh Baruch Hu knew exactly when to take us out of Mitzrayim. See the Mefarshim, the Abarvan, and others, they say, what does it mean he knew exactly when to take us out of Mitzrayim? That he got us right before we fell into the Shaar Hanun. We were at the Shaar Memtes, he chopped it just in time, and therefore he was able to save us. He was able to emancipate us and make Yetzias Mitzrayim. So always has a question like, what's the big mile of this? You save us when we start to descend, like when we first came to Mitzrayim. Save us, take us out of Mitzrayim, take us to Eretz Yisrael. What's the point of, it's like a lifeguard, like the girl is drowning. It's got another couple of minutes. So it doesn't work. No, another minute. It's fine. I'll save her. Don't worry. I'll save her. I'll get her at the Shaar Hanun. I'll get her at the Shaar Hanun. So I believe the Abarbanel explains that the way to understand it is, he says the following, that whatever we went through in Mitzrayim in terms of going down Madregas, so that's where we're going to be able to get up to. Meaning, no matter what we go through in life as a people, inquisitions, Holocaust, even assimilation, even intermarriage, we can get back. Why? Because we are trained, we are exercised in going down 49 Sharm of Tumah, and therefore we can get back up. 50th, that's a nituk legamri, that's complete chorus.
These pathways being created.
That's right, we've created a pathway. So let me just even say better than that. That I think we need to stop looking at it as 49 Sharm of Tumah, they're descending down and down and down to the Grand Canyon. I don't think that's the pshat. The pshat is think of it better as sort of an electrical wire, an American electrical wire that has, for argument's sake, 50 strands. So the electricity that's connecting the appliance to the source of electricity is a copper wire with many strands. So here's Shmuel. You cut off one strand. What happens? Nothing. You don't know. Who knows? You can buy wires a little thinner. Nothing. No, not the code. No, go thinner. You go thinner. You go thinner. How thin can you go? So the answer is every one of those strands is changing the integrity of your resistance, and it's getting a little bit too hot. You might not be able to feel it. It's not working correctly. But when you get down to the final strand, Nagid, the light might be going, but it's flickering and it's hot and it's not going to last, and the wire's going to burn out, and it's just not going to happen. It's going to blow. This is going to blow, and you get a fire. So when you think about the Memtes Shari Tumah, think about it as the Memtes or the Nun Shari Kedusha. So the Nun Shari Kedusha are 50 strands of connectivity that we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when you go from Nefesh to Ruach to Neshama, think of it not as even though he talks about it as a windpipe, but I just want to sophisticate this a little. Think about levels of connectivity. So level of connectivity, now a person's does an Avera, a little Avera. So you do a little Avera, boom, you carried in the Erev, boom, like one strand down, 2 strands down. The wholesomeness and the holiness of a person is if you're hooked up on all strands, and tshuva is repairing those strands. So it's like a new metaphor, but a new visual as to how to look at it. So when Klal Yisrael was in Mitzrayim, they were down to the final strand. if that would have been cut, Hashem would have had to recreate the Jewish people, because that's a whole new thing. But we were still and by the way, what was that strand? What was the strand? That we didn't change our clothes. We dressed like Jews. We talked like Jews. To Jewish names. Very, very superficial. Very, very external. Very, very unimportant. That's the final strand.
Bagels and lox.
Bagels and lox. That's the final strand. Or I mean, to be cynical, or a hat. It could be a final strand also. These are all things that you could put on a monkey. It doesn't say anything about the neshama. If it's coming from the neshama, yafeh. But if it's just throwing a hat on somebody, or even tzitzis, it doesn't. Those are all very, very external things. So that was the final stand. But it's a strand. It is a strand. Like that lox and bagels, as I grew up, the ikar, the lox, that lox and bagels, there is something Jewish about it. Like, we could make fun of it, but there is something Jewish about it. It's even a term. To bagel somebody is to bagel somebody is when somebody sees you, a from Jew, at the gas station, and he says, "Oh, I had some great kishka last night." Like, what is that all about? He's trying to tell you, I'm a brother, I'm Jewish, help me do tshuva. That's what he's trying to tell you. So that's the term. We find it less here in Israel, unfortunately, than you would find it in the Chutz La'aretz, which is a pella. But what the thing of it is, it's all that kishka, or that that's all that last strand. So the difference between our connection and the wires is that we're organic, like it can heal. Those wires are not going to heal. And you can get from 1 strand to 2 strands to 10 strands to 20 strands. So when you talk about kares, so like the ultimate kares, and that's why it's two things, kares, v'avader, and nefesh. The ultimate kares is just cut. Like, I just cut the wire. I have no connection at all. That's a difficult situation. You can still do tshuva, apparently, but it's hard to do tshuva. But every time a person does enough area, you're cutting a strand. Cutting a strand. It's just like in a relationship. You're cutting a strand. There are strands to a relationship. It's not an all or nothing. And the goal of alignment. So I'm changing now from alignment to connectivity. The goal is to get the flow going. And as I said, I just want to repeat this one last thing, that this can be monitored a lot with my reactions to challenging situations. Because if I'm always getting nervous, a person always talking less than her, a person is losing their temper, a person is doing all the things that we know this is not correct to do. Even something more subtle, like, we find ourselves punishing other people, and not talking to them, or arrogance. All of these things is a sign that there's something wrong with the strands. There's something like I need to get realigned and rehook up. And then a healthy person, Gedolim Tzaddikim, they don't do that. They don't do that. Real Tzaddikim, they have their challenges too, but they're wholesome. The wholesomeness is that from the neshama is coming to the ruach's coming, nefesh, and there's a certain adinut, there's a certain edelkeit. I think that's what we need to strive for, like a certain feinkeit, which is there, and that's really, you could fix the feinkeit, but you really got to functionally fix all the way up to the top, and then we'll get into the Zohar, which he's bringing in the Haggadah.
Exactly what it says there in terms of